Hello, Future Bestsellers. We are so happy to see you guys today. I'm Lisa Daly, and this is my channel. Thank you so much for being here today with us. As always, my awesome, fantastic, and delightful guests are here with our guest host are here with me today. Let's kick it off with Michelle. Tell us a little about you and your awesome channel.
Oh, right. Yeah, I just realized we switched the order. Usually Robert and I are flipped.
I know, right? It has to do with who got here first.
That's what it was. I was actually early today. What a shock. Hi, I'm Michelle Schusterman. I'm a middle grade and young adult author, and my channel is Writing Workshops, Traditional Publishing Chat, and Writing Blogs.
Very nice. I'm so glad to have you here today, as always. Story Detective, how are you?
I'm good.
That's
My
good.
channel is still out there. You can find it with old videos.
Yes, there's a link down in the description below. Tell us about what do you work? I know you've been working on some new videos. What kind of stuff are you working on now?
Basically, I'm working on taking craft a little bit deeper. There's a couple of videos about where I've been and some updates. And once I get beyond that, I have some longer series going, talking about great writers and great writing teachers and their philosophies. So that's going to be what I hit the ground running with once I get up and running again.
Ooh, I love that. I can't wait for that. That's going to be kind of exciting. So let's say hello to everybody in the chat today. We are a little slow. Apparently there's like a phantom live stream floating around. So I'm hoping that there aren't a bunch of people over there. My helper Kayla told me this morning, or told me last night, but I was already asleep. She was like, there seems to be a second live stream and I'm not quite sure what happened. I'm like, okay, well, hopefully people will come here today once they see us going like this on Facebook. And everybody at the same time, ready? Pay attention. Here we are. This is the correct live stream. Okay.
I look more like fending off vampires.
It was a little bit like that. That's okay. Whatever works is good. So Lady is here today. She is ready to rumble. I am super excited about that. I too am ready to rumble. And Shannon's here today. Hello. We are super glad you're here today. I'm like chock-a-block with bracelets today, so I should maybe take those off. Otherwise, because you guys know I talk with my hands. Otherwise, there will be this like rattle through the entire thing. I don't know how to say this name. Okay, Eleuthera.
Sounds good.
I know, right? It's pretty. Hello from the UK. Hello. We are super glad to see you today. Thank you so much for being here. Please tell us how to pronounce your name phonetically so that I do not screw it up throughout the entire broadcast. We are very glad that you are here. I would like to say your name right. So thanks so much for being here. Devin's here. Hello, Devin. We are super glad to see you here today. Cool Gamers here. Hello. Very glad to see you. BookTube Goddess. She's here. So glad to see you. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Like the House of Cards episode of the I love you. I love you so much. So I have been getting a number of writing questions lately, and sort of like from social media, and then some folks from YouTube directly. And so today we are going to answer some of those questions. So if you have some writing questions that you want us to answer, then definitely do that. And of course, as always, we are going to be doing some writing sprints, which I am very excited about today because I took most of last week off because my kids had spring break and I didn't write. And I've had, how when you take just a little break, how it just gets everything like going again. So I came back on Monday, very excited to work on my book and like super energized, which is great. And so I had a really great writing day Monday, really great writing day yesterday. And I'm looking forward to number 3.
Yes.
So there we go.
Excellent.
So, yeah. Anyway, I do feel I had like some camera challenges this morning because you guys know I upgraded my gear. I got a new camera, which I do look a little bit like a movie star. Just like this much. But But we're yeah, anyway, like, but I'm still kind of getting used to it. So like every morning it feels like this, like every time I do a live stream, it feels like this like giant, like, what's happening? I don't know how to make the camera work. But today I did it all by myself. I did not have to call in tech support from the next room. So I'm feeling very proud of myself today. Very, very proud. So all right. So what do you like because while I was doing all this, of course, I did not come up with the 5-minute timer to get it rolling. So can you guys tell us what you are going to be working on today? So I'm going to start with you, Robert. Let us know what you're working on.
I am still editing that manuscript, and I've had about a week that was a little spotty as well. I came back yesterday stronger than I was since probably most of last week. So hopefully that continues today as well.
Good for you. Maybe there's, there was like a full moon or something, I think last week. Maybe you guys, or the week before, I don't know.
Yeah, we just hit spring, so maybe there's a change in the atmosphere.
Right. That could be it. I think that could definitely be it. Michelle, what are you going to work on today?
I am working on my middle grade book, and I'm very excited. That is all I have to do all day.
What?
I had a client push back a deadline and our start date. So that kind of gave me an extra week to just work on my own book. And yeah.
There's nothing better than like found writing time, right? It's like afternoon sex. There's nothing better than found writing time because you didn't expect it, but it's awesome. Yes, exactly. That's totally the truth there. Yeah, leave it to me to smut things up here. So let me go ahead and hit the share button. We are going to start with a 5-minute warm-up sprint. And you guys in the chat, let us know what it is you are working on today. I am dying to know. So, all right, here we go. We're going to get started on our 5-minute sprint. And this is a great chance for you to like do a little dance party, warm yourself up, get your document open, get your coffee or your pink drink or whatever you're drinking today, and water's good. And here we go in 3, 2, 1, sprint. right, here we go. Welcome back, everybody. Ooh, I have another sprint or another like timer that just showed up because I was trying to be good and get us ready for the next sprint. So what I do, start it accidentally. Very nice work on my part. Yeah. Okay. So we talked a little bit about you're going to be working on editing, and Michelle has like free, glorious, free day writing.
Yes.
I'm working on hockey romance where a hockey player and a normal fall in love. So a non-hockey player, a hockey player and a non-hockey player. Maybe I'll do hockey on hockey, but I think for now, just a hockey and a
On
normal.
hockey.
Woo! Okay, so we have some Vixens here. Hello, Vixen. We are super, super glad to see you. Riley's here today. Hello, Riley. We are very, very happy to see her. All right. I really know how I really am dying to know. So it's Greek for free, Eleuthera. I'm gonna have to look this up on Google Translate. So that's just my fancy pseudonym. My real name is Vanessa. So pleased to be here. Thank you so much, Vanessa. We're so pleased to have you here. Okay, here we go. Devin says, I'm so excited that I'm getting close to the climax of my book, just a chapter or two left. What?
Wow.
That's phenomenal. We have to make sure that we get in plenty of sprints today because I have a secret dream that Devin finishes today.
That'd be awesome.
All right, let's see it. Vixen is working on some admin stuff. Boo. If only there were a way to make that more fun. There is some stuff. I do like sometimes get completely lost in marketing tasks, but writing still my true love. So let me see. I did get a comment, or I did get a question, since today's theme is that we're going to be answering some of the many questions that end up in my inbox or DMs. Hold on. I had a couple of them. Oh, I was going to be all good and have the title part up first. And what did I do? I lost it. So there we go. All right. So the question was, I'll try and track it down. So the question was, do you have to write what you know if everything you know is boring? And I thought that was a really great thing. Here, I'll just write it down. Okay, so do you have to write what you know if everything you know is boring?
My first thought is that what's boring to you is going to be interesting to somebody else.
Well, that's a great little piece of advice. All right, let's expand on that a little bit. So what if my job is that I'm a sanitation worker, and all day I'm picking up people's trash. I can already see a store. I don't know if I'm going to be good at this. Like, what's the most boring job ever?
Oh, not sanitation worker.
That's what I was going to say. I can already see a murder plot. I'm a sanitation worker. I'm just doing my job. I jump the trash, and then I see a skull rolling out, or whatever it is. Like, yeah, I can make that work. Okay.
Well, just look at The Office. I mean, not The Office.
Well, yeah, look at The Office.
No. Oh my God, what's that movie? 90s movie. Guy who works at a boring job and he gets hypnotized in Office Space.
Yes.
Office Space. That is supposed to be about a guy who has like what looks like the world's most boring job, and they made a movie out of that, and it was very entertaining.
It was true. And there is some magic in the mundane sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, I love these stories about these two sort of, like the lady who works at the diner and the, whatever. Like, I love those sort of interesting stories about people's everyday lives. I think there's sort of a little bit of magic in the everyday. So, okay. So that's a really good answer to that question. What do you think, Robert? Do you have to write what you know when what you know is boring?
It's a yes and no vexed question as far as I'm concerned, because writing what you know is the most misunderstood statement in all of writing, because humans are all boring, but we all have experience with human condition. And I think
Speak for yourself, buddy.
Writing what you know, I think, is your own experience in terms of what you feel strongly about, what you've experienced in life, as far as, being unfair, bad experiences that happened to you that you needed to overcome. And somewhere in the theme of your story, whether it's on planet Earth or a different galaxy, there's a human condition involved, and what you know and feel strongly about, that is what's going to pull it off.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, and actually your advice was really similar to what I had to say on the topic. So I just want to add a little bit on. No, because I think that people translate write what you know into like the sort of physical things that we know. Oh, I know how to be an insurance adjuster, or oh, I know. And speaking of that, like I worked with an author ages ago who wrote about an IRS agent who ended up solving crimes. And but IRS agent feels like it would be the most boring job ever, and yet this guy has rabid fans, among them some of the biggest mystery authors of our time, and movie interests and all kinds of other stuff. And it's about an IRS agent named Mort. Could you get more boring than that? But they're really interesting, fascinating books. So I think a lot of times people think that write what you know has to be like, well, I've only worked in a donut shop, so I have to I have to write about being in a donut shop. And what we all know is what it feels like to be a human being, which is what you were talking about, right? Overcoming adversity, or struggling to get back up again after you've been knocked down, or joy, or what it would feel like. We've all fantasized about what it would feel like to have our dream life. And you know what? Your brain cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is vividly and repeatedly imagined. And so if you are vividly dreaming about being in outer space, or what it'd be like to live on a different planet, or what it would be like to live in the 1800s or whatever, there is something about that you can learn from yourself. I feel like
as far as actual real life experience, I mean, my father worked a state job when I was growing up, but there was corruption going on there. You think of stuff when you're in school and how society and that animal instinct to kind of bully one another and be the strong member of the tribe takes over. I've worked retail where it's almost become like a very symbolic miniature society, and how it all plays together, and the dichotomy of it all. So you can turn anything into a symbolic story that makes sense to people and they can relate to it.
That's so true. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just like
jump in.
Yes.
That's why you're here, Michelle.
I think that the misinterpretation of that advice, write what you know, when it comes to fiction, is that people take it so literally, and just when really you should be thinking maybe more thematically, because that's just like what Robert just said. That's the part that's going to speak to people. Like Stephen King was not writing what he knew because he was never a 17-year-old girl who got bullied for having her first period in a locker room. Right. But he is writing what he knows in every book, and that he knows what it's like to have demons. And that's really what all his books are about. His characters are haunted in some way, and he has experienced that himself, and he brings that to every book. It's not literal.
Right. Well, and I think that is such a good example, right? He does know what it's like to have demons because he's struggled with addiction for his entire life and career. He's had some really difficult periods that are, that he has talked about pretty openly. But also, if you ever, like, I've met him on several occasions, and he could not be a nicer guy. He lives in Sarasota, and we have many of the same interests. So if there's ever like a rally to raise teacher pay, he's there, or for the environment or things like that. And so I know he's a sweetheart. He really is like a good guy. He was at our women's march. Like, he's a good, decent human being. And at least as far as as far as my experience with him. And I think, like, he's a big, tall guy, and he's kind of a scary looking guy. And right? If you think about if you're a big, tall guy and kind of a scary looking guy when you're an adult, what did you look like at 14 or 15? Right? Yeah. He was probably some of that experience that he had, and again, I don't know what his high school experience was like. He could have been like the star football player and the, voted most popular class president, blah, blah, blah. But I imagine from his writing that he he sort of felt like an outsider, and right. And so I think that there is a connection. If you're a gangly teenage boy, you have a lot more in common with Carrie, as your example, than you a person might think. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he also grew up in a very boring small town, but he paid attention. And look how he puts those boring people together and find reasons to clash and butt heads and screw one another over. People do that in every group. The group think
Yes.
is a bad thing, and he paid attention to all of that.
He did. I know his human details are just so that's what makes his characters feel so real. Like he's so good with that, like the little bits of pettiness and things like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, phenomenal. Vixen says Sandra Bullock did a movie where she was working at home on a computer, nothing happening in her life until dun dun dun, and the movie was made for that. Yes, that's exactly it. I mean, all movies, all books at some point, well, maybe not all, but most books start at some point, most novels start at some point with like a person going about their normal day until the thing happens that sets them on a different path.
Mhm.
Yeah. Vixen, what you know isn't always personal experience. It could be things you've studied or researched thoroughly. That is absolutely true. I think that there are a lot of books. I always think of Tom Clancy when I think of research, because boy, that guy could know every
Yeah.
button on a control board,
Right.
and what color
Think
it
about
was.
that. Yes, as writers, we're reading and researching and learning new stuff all the time. So what we know is always expanding and changing. So
That is true. When I wrote Single-Minded, the main character was a spatial psychologist, which is a really unusual and weird job. But I had met a spatial psychologist when I was doing the daytime show and writing my first dating book, Stop Getting Dumped, because I had written an article that I wanted to turn into a pitch, and I wanted to know, like, is there a best place you can stand at a bar to get more attention from, other people at the bar? And it turns out there is a correct answer to that. And that is, if you stand at the corner of the bar instead of on the flat side, you're not only more likely to meet someone because it's easier to talk because you're not flat, you're like, you can actually face someone, but also bartenders gravitate towards the corners. So not only you meet more people, but you have a full drink. But I thought that was such a fascinating job. And so and more interesting than, like, it's one of those weird jobs, and there was a lot of cool stuff, and it made for a lot of good comedy material. And afterwards, a bunch of people said, "Hey, oh my gosh, that was so cool. Did you, is that a real job?" And I was like, "Yeah, it really is. I had no idea." And so you do learn some things, that you've researched. And I think all writers, like, we all have this weird collection of odd facts and doodads.
Yeah.
Facts and doodads, right? Yeah, right. We do. So absolutely. All right. Any other, and Walter Mitty, right? Walter Mitty, all about a boring outer life and fantastical inner life. I love that. By the way, I never read the book, and I heard that it was really good. I'll have to do that. It's one of those that's like been on my list for a long time. All right. So I think that was a fantastic question. We'll come back and answer another question when we come back, but we are going to do our first sprint of the day. So let me get that question down. Here we go. This time I actually have the timer up, so I feel very excited and proud about that. Look at that. Okay, everybody. It is time for us to do our very first writing sprint. We are going to write for 20 minutes today. And so how many times have we done this? I've been doing these for like 3 years, and I literally just forgot what I was going to say. Let's write. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Cha-cha. Sprint. All right, we are back. So let me just put a pause on this so I have it for next time. So I love the next question. It's kind of a fun one. Here we go. How did everybody do on that last sprint? Sorry, I'm just like jumping right into the question, and I want to like make sure that we're actually having a conversation here today.
I did very well.
Yeah, did you do all right?
Yeah.
Good. How about you, Michelle?
350 words.
Very nice. Very nice. I got about 170, but that was my first writing of the morning. So
Nice.
yeah, so Vixen is pretty sure it's the net. That was Sandra Bullock. That was what I spent the first several minutes of the 20 minutes doing, is trying to figure out the name of that stupid movie. And I was like, if I go on like a rabbit, if I go look it up on IMDb, I'm going to end up like in a rabbit hole of like, oh, I need to see that movie. Regina's here. Hello, Regina. She says she needs to mark the stream on her calendar. We're here every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern. So super, super glad. Thank you so much. Very nice. Lainey finished a chapter. Woohoo. Very, very good job. Let us know in the chat, you guys, what you're working on if you have not shared already. Here's this question. Excuse me. I thought it was interesting. Why does first person POV have so many detractors? I will say this as a person who writes in first person POV all the time. And so so I thought like that's funny, but I think there is something I think people do have feelings about it either way. Do you have feelings about first person?
Not in that it's better or worse than any other person. I think it's just, everybody has their preferences both as writers and readers, and
yeah,
you can have good and bad writing in any person.
That is true. That is definitely true. And I think certain genres have preferences. I write in romantic comedy. You see a lot of first person POV in romantic comedy. So there's that. We can talk about some of the ups and downs, pros and cons, and things like that, though. Robert, what do you think? Do you have a hot take on this? I see the comment sections going off. So Laura's got something to say, I think. Let's see. Oh no, she's got poetry for us. So yeah, that's the thing. Like, what do you think?
I think that certain genres can work better in third person, or are more common in third person. I think it's possible to do almost anything in first person because it's more intimate. It just depends on how you lay it out on the page and how you break down that perspective. Because in my mind, even if you're doing third person, which some of my stories are third person, and you're still picking that point of view character per scene, it's just that you're giving it a more, omniscient outside of their head trying to get in view, while first person, you're already there.
Right. That's true. I think too that different genres lend themselves more to different POVs. And the other thing is, you do not have to have a single POV if you're writing first person. The book I'm working on right now, Hawkeye Romance, is dual POV, but they're both first person. But I think that intimate, what I'm experiencing in my head thing is great for romance, because you're feeling it as they're feeling it, which is what the reader is often searching for. And my first books were single POV, first person. So you just had the female character's point of view, but these books are dual. And so you're also seeing what the guy is thinking and feeling. And And
when you hear people speak that way about first person, I think they think they're being highbrow, like that's not real literature. But it's like, not only is that's wrong. Jane Eyre is written in first person. So
right. Yes, that's exactly. Well, and that is the thing. Like, I think the biggest takeaway from this little discussion here is that none of the writing advice, write what you know, first person sucks, whatever, that none of that is true for everyone. There are authors that always make that stuff work. I'm sure there's a blockbuster book that starts with paint drawing somewhere. There's a blockbuster book with paint drawing, even if there's like a blood spatter on the drawing page immediately after. I don't know, but what I'm saying is that you can make a lot of these things. You can really make a lot of these things work. You really, really can.
I'm a little biased, but again, it goes back to, I guess, what we learned and what we feel, early on. And, I kind of worked with Saul Stein, who has written literary novels and crime thrillers, and his favorite point of view is first person. He's written in third person, but he's written it all in first person. And he said, here's how you do it. So that stuck in my head because it just felt more into the character and more gritty and real.
That's why I love it. I like to experience those emotions firsthand. I also love books written in third person for sure, but yeah, I like that, like, intimacy, and I think a lot of and there's some people that don't like it. They really like readers that don't like it and writers who don't like it. But I hate to say like, oh, this is bad or this is, because somebody is doing it really well. There's always someone who's doing it really well. Lainey says, I write first person present. I like how immediate and urgent it feels when I read in that POV. Yes, I am right there with you. Regina says, I like first person because you actually become the POV character and see the world through their eyes. Yes. Which, that's part of why we read books, right? Is to have that experience, whether it's falling in love or traveling to space or solving a mystery or being a rock star or whatever. Speaking of which, is anybody else like completely obsessed with Daisy Jones and the Six?
I have not watched or read that.
Haven't started it yet.
That it's a Taylor Jenkins Reid book, and it's been on my nightstand for a million years. And I usually don't like to see the movie, but I really was or series beforehand, before I read the book. But I was very interested in the series, and I'm completely addicted. And also, do you think we could bring caftans back? Because I feel like I would really vibe with that deal. So, all right. Laura says, I enjoy first person POV for some of my horror stories, right? Limit what the reader knows to what the main character sees, diving into their racing thoughts, feeling their goosebumps. Yes, that's exactly it. Right. Yep. Yeah.
You can get more eccentric with the characters. It might have been Stein who said this, or it might have been somebody else that said, from third person, you can say so-and-so ate 100 bananas for breakfast. And then you have the character saying, I ate 100 bananas for breakfast, and it's an exaggeration. Whereas from the outside point of view, it sounds like you're taking it seriously.
Right.
So it doesn't sound as eccentric or authentic.
Yes. True. Tina says, I like writing first person. I like to see what the character might see. Well, and that's how yes, I can totally relate to that. That's how I write. It's like a movie happening in my head. Love. Regina says, Lainey, I'm impressed. Maybe I'm too old to feel comfy in present tense. I've done fan fiction in second person. That is very intense. Second person is a whole other, right? I love second person for nonfiction, but I have never tried writing second person for fiction. And I don't know if it's one of those things that I'm like, I must do this before I die. I don't know.
I read at least one novel, and I can't even remember offhand what it was, that was effectively done in second person. And I thought, wow, that's kind of interesting. Right. But I don't think it can be done for most stories and be believable.
Yeah. But it can be done for like little short snippets. The book that I always think of first in second person is called You by Charles Benoit. It's very short. It's like novella YA, and it's very well done. I thought, like, it didn't irritate me to be in that point of view for that long. But then there's oh gosh, what's the name of the co-authors who have written a bunch of really successful thrillers? I cannot think of the titles right now. Oh no, you know what? I think the book is called The Wife Between Us.
Oh yeah.
But it wasn't, that was the first book I read by them. Their second book that they wrote together has one, like a first person main character POV and then a second person villain POV. So you are the villain, and it's like kind of a mystery of unraveling who it is that's talking. And I thought that was really well done too.
That is really well done. That's the thing, is like there are creative ways to do it. And I think that when you are eliminating one POV versus another, like, oh, I just don't like that. If you're not giving yourself the opportunity to use, I mean, there are some stories that would be better told in first or third. And obviously that's up to you as the writer, but I think there's some opportunities that we miss if we're like just gonna go with the pack on that one.
Yeah, I think you would have to be pretty creative. It reminds me of like old time radio shows, which I used to listen to a lot when I was working on my art. And there's some of those, and it's almost a cliche because they would be like, you know, you walk up the stairs and you enter a dark room and bum, 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 something happens, and you're trying to put the listener in the place of the character, and it just
it feels like choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
I'm not.
Yeah, exactly. So I do find it like very accessible, and in particular for romance. Like the reason romance readers read romance is that they want to experience those emotions. And for me, I go like, if you're right there in my head, then then that feels like you're, to me as a reader, it feels closer. But the other thing is that I write comedy, and there's a lot of gold to be mined between what you think is going to happen and what actually happens, or what you think the situation is and what actually, or just like getting in your own way, the way that humans do. So BookTube Goddess says, I've heard more detractors going against present tense than I have regarding first person. Well, that's interesting. I also write present tense, like Lainey. And one problem is that your books age faster for sure. I mean, there's something about that. But I don't know, same. So what about you? What do you think, Michelle?
I mean, just like with the person you write in, I think it can be done well and it can be done poorly. Like I don't think any tense is better than the other.
Yeah.
This is probably me being just coming from where I come from and maybe being a little overly sensitive, but I feel like the criticism of both first person and present tense, really, I started to hear it when YA had its surgence in the Harry Potter Twilight era, because most young adult, not most, but a lot of young adult is written first person present. And I feel like that's just, it's the same people who are talking about how YA isn't real. That's not real literature. That are dogging on it, you know?
And chick lit isn't real fiction, and romance isn't real fiction.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think there is something to that, because a lot of times these, oh, don't do this, come from romance. Like, if you want to write a real book, don't write that. Right. And so, which is wrong. How we were just saying earlier, there are no rights and no wrongs. That's wrong. Don't be shaming the romance writers or the YA writers, or basically any kind of books that the ladies enjoy. They are all equally as valid.
I think you can do whatever you want no matter what genre you're writing, but I do think, just like with first and second person, maybe present and past tense sometimes work better in certain genres. Like present tense feels unfinished and urgent and in the moment, so I think it lends itself well to like thrillers and horrors and things. Whereas past tense gives the sense that this story has happened and there is a definite ending and like destiny and fate in mind, and that's why it works well with like fantasy and things like that. But it's not saying that you have to do that.
No, it can also give a little bit of gravitas, right? That it could, if it feels like, if we're talking about it, it's in the past, then it must be important in some way, right? And I think and that's the thing, is that all these things that we talked about, none of them are good or bad. They're just tools that we use as writers to tell our story, to engage our readers, and make them sort of feel what they're doing. So
yeah, people are only complaining about these things because they read something that they didn't like, or that became unpopular with a certain group. It's the same type of thing. You can't listen to it if you get a voice in your head and it's working. Then go with it. I heard many arguments over stupid things like the he said, she said, and don't use that at all, and come up with all these myriad different ways to say it.
Please don't do that.
Please don't do that.
Arguments on Facebook. Yeah. And it's like, oh my God. It's just like, here's these 1,000,001 different choices you could use.
It's the worst. You know why it's the worst? Let me just go. Do you want to go first or second, Michelle? We're having a team rant on this.
Oh, mine is short. I just want to say most of your dialogue tags should be invisible. People shouldn't actually notice that they're reading them. They're just there to keep you straight on who's talking, and that's it.
That's exactly what it is. Your dialogue tags are just there to keep you straight on who's talking. And when you use says or said, readers don't notice them. They just fade into the background. It's not like they're going through counting how many thes you have in there. Right? They don't notice them. But if you say he chortled, she snorted, then they do notice them. And you know what they think? Whoa, like what? Like why is this person always chortling and snorting? Like right? You just
hissing. That's the most common one is, you know, they hiss this and they hiss that because they're supposed to be angry, and it lampoons your character.
It does, but there was, and I don't remember if this was an advertising thing. I don't know. I learned it a long time ago, and it has stuck with me ever since. I think it was an advertising adage, but I could be mistaken. And that is, if you try to emphasize everything, you get nothing across. So if your character does feel the need to hiss at some point, it's going to stand out a lot more if it was said all the way through, versus if they're hissing and chortling and snorting and giggling and all the other crap that it says on Facebook. If they're doing all of those things through the whole thing, then that hiss is not going to have any meaning, because it's just another like over the top dialogue tag, versus you using it when it really matters, when they really are hissing because they're like, I don't know what they're hiding the bad guys over there. Anyway, so yeah.
Somebody might get angry and hiss, and then they speak, but they're not going to hiss and speak at the same time unless they sound like a snake. And if they're hissing all through the book, then
unless you're Voldemort. Yeah, right, exactly. So that's it. And eventually you're going to run out of dialogue tags. Like there are a lot, but there are not so many that you can use a different one for every utterance through an entire 300-page book. No, can't do it. Okay, so Regina says, as a sci-fi wannabe who had to learn how to write romance, I laugh now when someone says romance isn't real writing. Yes. It is. Lady says, of course, romance gets pooped all the time. Yes, it's super, super true. Absolutely true. Yeah, what's funny is I actually came to romance. Like my first book, I was very like, oh, it's not a romance. It's like a sort of coming of age kind of thing. And it was totally a romance. And why I had this idea in my head that romance was bad was like decades of socialization that real writers don't write that. And yet the people who constantly are innovating in the industry are often romance writers. So it's the most popular genre, and I like it, and I don't want to hear another word about it.
No, it's ridiculous. It's like that whole thing about, women writing women who have feelings. That's chick lit. But men writing men who have feelings is literature.
Right.
It's like taken so much more seriously. It's like, yo, it's the same.
Right.
If you think about it, almost every genre out there has been considered not real writing at some point or another, except for the grand literary writers. So
yes.
Indeed.
Very nice. Mary says, hi, sorry she's late. Hi, Mary. We're very glad to hear you. Philip Pullman treat. I don't care how many people enjoy it. Fiction in the present tense is an abdication of narrative responsibility. Right.
I liked him.
I know. When we all signed our narrative responsibility oaths, we did promise not to write in the fiction or write in the present tense. Are you kidding me, Philip?
I would love if did he make a thread out of that? Because I would love to hear why.
I don't know. But if somebody finds it, please drop it into the comments. I appreciate, right? Philip Pullman, great guy. Great. Well, I don't know if he's a great guy, but great writer, right? Exactly. And what do you mean you don't care how many people enjoy it? Like yes, some literature is for some purposes and other literature is for enjoyment. I do care. Like that's my biggest thing is how much people enjoy my books. That's my biggest thing. Do they enjoy them and will they buy more? Yes, that's it. What? Like I can't even. My brain is like, huh? I can't. I get it. Sort of. This is. I'm not going to say. I was going to say something snarky, and now I'm not going to because I'm a nice person.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just had I just realized something. I was thinking about his Dark Materials.
Right.
I actually used to use this as an example in my writing course when I would talk about choosing a tense. Philip Pullman in the first book, what's it called? The Golden Compass. The first kid who gets kidnapped, he slips into present tense very deliberately, because that book is written in past tense, but it slips into present tense as the boy is being taken, and he's getting his soul, like his demon cut off or whatever, and it makes it so much more tense. It's so effective. Like, F you, Philip Pullman, you did it and it worked. Like, that's the point of present tense. What the heck is he
What
saying?
the heck?
Oh,
All
that's so
right.
funny.
Right. And he used it effectively.
Yes.
And you clearly, yeah. And you use that as an example. Right.
Yes.
That's
You know
the
what?
thing.
On our next sprint, I'm gonna go pull that book off my shelf.
Will you do a small reading for
Yeah.
us? I would appreciate that. Yeah. Very, very nice.
And you know what?
Love
It's only
it.
bad until some big company starts making a lot of money doing whatever it is that they said was bad in the first place, like comic books. They were considered to be the ass end of everything, and now they're everywhere.
Right.
And they'll run it into the ground, and they'll become crap and taboo again.
Right. Yeah, that is definitely the truth, for sure. All right, you guys, this has been such a great conversation. We are going to get some writing sprints done today. So let me go ahead and pop that timer up on the screen. There we go. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, that was weird. All right, here we go. So we are going to put 20 minutes up on the clock. I say that like I'm a game show host. Let's get 20 minutes on the clock there, Saul. And let's hit it. Here we go. Writing sprints starting in 3, 2, 1. You've got this. I was like so into my story that I did not I could not like get back to StreamYard, which is sort of funny. How did you guys do? How did everybody do in the chat? Let us know. How did you guys do? Michelle, you're muted. I don't know if I'm muted. Oh yeah, you're good
Thank
now.
you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I added another maybe 250 words, kind of slow going.
Nice.
But Robert, I'm writing part of my book. Like I have a lot of like interstitials, and one of them is comics, which it's the first time I've ever actually tried to write a comic script of any sort. It's very fun, but I don't. I think I have a lot of work to do.
It's a lot like a movie script, but you know.
That's what I looked it up, and there's like I guess a lot of different approved methods of doing it, and so I chose the one that looked the most like a movie script. That's what I'm more familiar with.
Some people like Alan Moore will give every detail in great detail because he's Alan Moore and he has a vision.
Right.
Other people will just say, okay, the next 3 pages are going to be a fight scene, so they'll let the artist have at it and just
kapow, kapow.
Yeah.
Love that. That is awesome. How did you do, Robert? Now I can't remember if I circled back. I think I started with Michelle. How'd you do on the last sprint?
I finished my chapter, and I think it's the best chapter I've done in a week. So maybe this conversation is igniting some thought.
Yay! Oh, I love that. I totally love that. Shannon says, I really like using dialogue beats. Super true. Regina had agreed with you, and I missed that comment because StreamYard, was slow as it is. Michelle, so true and so maddening. No idea what that was, but
I think that was, I saw her comment that. I think it was about the chicklet versus literature.
Right. Okay. Allie says, loving the ASMR here. Don't mind me while I nap on the beach. Just step over me. I'm with you. Dawdling Writers here. Hello. We are super, super glad to see you. Mary took a little break, got a planner, got a reminder. Lucky you. Oh, that's always nice to have a full extra week for that library book. That's very nice. I will say when my kids were little, they actually thought the bookstore was the library because I am the worst. I'm the worst. I back in the olden days when we had video stores, I would rack up like massive late fees, right? Thank God for streaming for me. Right. Because I'm the worst. But it's always like cheaper for me to buy a book than to borrow it and then pay all the late fees. So anyway, okay, so here is our last question, which I think is such an interesting one. How can I keep my plot from being too predictable?
Interesting.
Yeah, right. That's a good one. Michelle, you want to start with this one, or you want to think first?
I need to think first.
Okay.
That's a good one.
So it is. It's a really good question. So for me, I think the best way to keep your plot from being too predictable is to throw some surprises and reversals in. Lots of surprises and reversals, because not lots, like every scene is like, what, an alien? Not like that. But that when things like, you always want to obviously make trouble for your characters the whole time. That's our job as authors, right? Make trouble for your characters. But I think that one of the things, and there's some, like when I think about romance, right? We all have sort of a fairly predictable plot in that they meet and they get together and there's probably some like that. And then everybody's happily ever after at the end, or happy for now. So in some sense, every plot of a romance novel is the same, but of course the plot itself is like all the little details of the how, right? How did they get from here to there? And there are a million different ways that you can make that same boy meets girl, they fall in love, happily ever after. There are millions of ways that you can make that work. And even though the reader might know that you're going to solve the mystery by the end of the book, or that the couple is going to get together, or that they, that the what was that Bruce Willis movie? It was like a bunch of oil drillers trying to save the world from an asteroid. I don't remember. Oil drillers in space. There's yes. Were they all? They were like underwater oil drillers or something. Anyway, so like all the sort of trouble and challenge that they face. And I think that's the thing with with plots being predictable, is that there are not enough things in the plot that surprise the reader. And it's hard to surprise the reader.
Yeah, I think I have two things. One is a quick fix and one is a long fix. But I think some stories take very conventional things like the oil drillers and they put it in space instead of on Earth, and change up the circumstances. But the quick fix is we're really used to cliches and things that happen in movies, and those are the first things that come to mind. And those are usually not the right way to go. So the quick fix is, if you think of something, your first thought, try going in the exact opposite direction and see where that leads you. And if you don't get anything good there, make lists and start writing down all of your typical ideas. And you might write down 10 or 20 different things until you get to something fresh, but you exhaust the typical stuff. And then you might have to think for a minute, but something fresh will come to mind.
Yeah. I love that, of sort of taking like a popular idea and turning it on its head, or using it to cause more problems for the reader or for the characters. Yeah, I really love that. Michelle, what do you think about this?
Well, since I'm writing like the middle grade I'm working on right now is a mystery, that's kind of where my head went first. And I think, predictable is like the death of a good mystery, right? That's the last thing. But at the same time, we know in most cases our hero is going to solve the crime. So one idea is that while a lot of mysteries are whodunits, like the mystery, the answer is who did the thing.
Right.
You can mess with it by maybe making it a why done it. Like, it's really more the intriguing question is why,
right?
Why this person did it or how they did it. Like, they're guilty.
Right.
It just seems impossible that they pulled this off. And just like looking at it from different angles like that can kind of help keep it fresh.
There is a show on Peacock called Poker Face, which is kind of a why done it.
I just finished it. Freaking phenomenal. Oh my God.
Really?
Everybody go watch that show.
Okay, now I'm going to write it down.
So good. So good. Did you watch all of it, Robert?
About halfway through.
It's so good.
I'm so excited about that.
Like, I think you still have the best is yet to come, Robert, because I will not give anything away, but the one about the race car driver, I was like 3/4 of the way through that, and I was like, I want to make a video about the script for this particular episode because it is so tightly written. Like, nothing goes to waste. Not a single thing is thrown away.
I just keep sitting there saying, man, she's with these criminals and killers and she's telling them all this information that would make her the next victim.
I know. It's like Charlie over and over again. Just
Love that.
It's so good though. Yeah, but Lisa, do you know the premise of it at all?
I don't know anything about it except you guys are on fire about it. Now I want to watch it.
You need to watch it. The main character has the ability to know when somebody is lying 100% of the time. And that's really just it. And she stumbles into these crimes and like she really only knows that something is off because she can tell somebody is lying, but then she has to like actually find evidence,
right?
Using evidence, and
so that is fascinating. So this actually reminds me of. Do you guys remember a show that was on? I don't know. It's probably 10 or 15 years ago called "Lie to Me."
Yeah, that sounds familiar, but I don't.
Yeah, so it was a television show on a network, and it was basically about this guy, Dr. Paul Ekman, who was actually a real person, and his partner who had developed the ability to read micro expressions, which is something that all human beings make, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's contempt or disdain, which of course made them very useful in police work. And so they would be, in the show, they'd be like called in as consultants to figure out, is this person lying or what really happened or whatever, which they could do by reading the people's micro expression. It sounds much more boring than the show was. It was kind of good. It was an interesting idea. And as a person who was a dating expert at the time, I was like, wow, what a useful habit to have, to be able to read whether or not someone is lying to you.
Yeah.
right?
This
And
chick
so,
is just like talking to the people about the mysterious circumstances, and then all of a sudden the lie comes up, and she's like, "Bullshit," and they're like,
yeah,
"What?"
right? Well, this is the thing. So I interviewed the guy for a segment I was doing on the daytime show. I interviewed Dr. Paul Ekman and his partner, who is also a character in the story. But I interviewed the real people as well as one of um, the people in the show, they called them naturals, but in real life they were called wizards. And there was all this study, the whole big deal. And what the guy told me, Paul, what he told me was that it's actually not the magical gift that you would think. Like at first you're like, oh, if I could tell everybody was lying, like I would always know what was going on. But he says, like, no one can possibly share every thought that they have, or sometimes they don't want to. And human beings have an innate right to privacy. And he was saying that with his wife, he'd say, are you mad about something? And she'd be like, nope. But she didn't want to talk about it. And he was like, she has the right. So you have this challenge where your wife is lying to you, but and the other thing he says is, but you never know about what. You only know how they're responding with contempt or anger or deceit or whatever. Yeah. So fascinating. Now I really, really want to. Really want it. Allie says, love that show. And Lainey says, Poker Face is so good. So now. And Lainey also wants to talk about the last 2 episodes with you.
I swear the second to last episode, like the hair on my arms was standing up straight for like half an hour.
I am dying. Where can we find
sidebar is the episode that was supposed to be in Texas with the barbecue was filmed around here. We were trying to figure out where it was, but there is a place going towards New Paltz, New York, where they have like a fair and they do have food festivals. It's like a field like that. So we think that's where it was.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's cool. All right. So before we move on, what network?
Peacock.
Okay.
All right. Watch it, Lisa, so we can all flail about it next week.
I know, right? Oh my gosh. Not that I need anything else on my list.
I know,
but, yeah, definitely. So that is so anybody else have any advice on how to keep your plot from being too predictable? I do think there's comfort too for readers, right? Part of the reason we love romance novels. Part of the reason we love mysteries is because we know that they're going to catch the bad guys in the end, right? That it's more, so there is like some comfort in that. You just, as a writer, have to find you're still going from point A to point B, couple meets, couple falls in love, couple gets together, well, it's to point C, but you know what I'm saying. Mystery solved. You still, those sort of endpoints are the same, or beginning and endpoint are the same, but you have so much leeway through the whole story to make things
it's the intrigue and the circumstances. Ed McBain, Evan Hunter. I mean, as Ed McBain, he did his famous 87th Precinct police procedurals, but as Evan Hunter, he did a novel that reversed it, that started with the murder, and then we kind of figure out how it happened, and we figure out who did it as the story goes along. And the first half is from the victim's point of view, who happens to be one of the minor players in the Broadway play Cats. She's the one that gets murdered. And then we switch to the guy's point of view halfway through, and then we start understanding he's not all that he's cracked up to be. And then it leads up to the how and the why of it. So it kind of like reverse spins the murder, but circumstances that would be very intriguing. So he obviously saw the play and said, you know what if this person and that, it's just playing with interesting circumstances.
True. Regina says that's the challenge of genre fiction. You need to provide what the reader expects, and at the same time surprise the heck out of them. So I would like to know, I feel like we've talked about this a little bit before, but maybe since we're talking about it now and we've got a few new folks on, are there things that you do when you're looking for an interesting plot twist?
Gosh, I see. The thing is, I've struggled with this in the past because I tried too hard to subvert expectations for the genre, and it ends up not making sense. Like tropes are tropes for a reason. They're not bad. You know what I mean? Not everything needs to be subverted. So, I mean, that's a really good question. I will say, just again, for the book I'm writing right now, the thing that helped the most is that before I wrote an outline, I wrote exactly what my villain's plan was and what he was going to do step by step. And then I made sure at least 1 or 2 things went wrong for him along the way.
Yes.
And then I used that because it, like, so that it felt realistic. And I knew that when I got to the end, the reveal of this person would make sense. And then I took the things that went wrong and figured out how are these going to be red herrings or clues for my character, and like starting. I don't know if that answers the question, but
no, I think it totally does. I will sometimes pull a tarot card for my character, or I have a little to see like what does it say, and then I'll read in the book like I'm reading for the character and see like, oh, this is happening in your life right now, or there's this, and sometimes that will spark something kind of interesting while I'm plotting. But then one of my favorite things is I have a roll, like an old school round Rolodex, and from which I love the look of, but it's very impractical as far as storing context. And so I have in there like just a list of like random shit, like, oh no, someone died, like just all these different twists that can happen. And you go, and I sometimes just pull a card and go like, because the surprise of it for you as the writer also works into a really nice surprise for the reader, right? Because you're not expecting it. It just popped off the Rolodex. So yeah. Anyway, so
the Book of Runes is also great for character stuff. I mean, any problem that you can think of is pretty much there. It's universal. I'd recommend that to writers a lot. Just picking a rune, think about your character's problem, and read the definition, and you'll have ideas. With trying to write a Sherlock Holmes story and not make it seem like the typical mystery has been a bit challenging. But Sherlock Holmes got bored and he retired. He went off to raise bees on a bee farm, and why did he do that? So I made his last Baker Street story when he's getting ready to retire. He hasn't told Watson or anybody else, and he's breaking up the partnership. And
which is such great material, right? Because
have all kinds of problems, and suddenly he gets a case that he can't refuse, and he gets pulled back in, and there's a lot of frustration.
Love it. So, I love it. That's fantastic. Love. Allie says, my one novel, I was stuck and I asked for help, and someone said, set a fire. So I did, and boom, story saved. So, right. Sometimes that random occurrence, which is what happens in life, right? I'm going along great. I got a new job. I just got a new apartment. I met a guy and now my boss was murdered at the office, or, something happening, something you don't expect. That's like the, a key component of storytelling. But even when we get stuck, if you throw in a random event and then try to make sense of it in your character's world, it can really help a lot. Sometimes it is, a wild goose chase, but a lot of times it really will light something on fire under you. So, you like that? Very, very nice. All right. Does anybody else have any thoughts or advice about how to keep your plot from being too predictable? Love to hear what you have to say in the chat if you guys do not have don't have something. But we're so close. We do not have time. I feel like this is like such a good stopping point. We don't have time for another sprint. So we may end up finishing a couple minutes early. Regina says, love that. One of my Colorado Billionaire series begins with a female lead pushing a classic Mustang off the cliff. Oh my God, that is a phenomenal. That's great. Right? That's great, because you're like, is she hiding a body? Is she just sick of that's it? This is the last time this car freaking breaks down on me on the side of the road. I'm pushing it off a cliff. Is she trying to go into hiding like that?
Is there somebody in the trunk?
Is there somebody in the trunk? Is there something in the trunk? That is a great way to start a story, Regina. Now I'm like, Colorado Billionaires. What is book 1 of the Colorado Billionaires series? I would like to know that, please. Love. Absolutely fantastic.
I have kind of a sidebar from our last discussion when I was not on camera and was talking about what I was writing on and the old word processor that I picked up.
Yeah.
We can actually show that.
Oh, let's do it. Hold on. I'm going to get rid of this. Let me get rid of the banner, and then I'm going to make you big so we can look at your thing. All right, here you go, Robert.
So it is portable, but it's chunky. But you can buy it. You can see it's alive.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's just the word processor. It does have a lot of tools. I don't know if you can see the toolbar.
That's
Yeah.
so cool. Oh,
And it's still
Yes.
huntable. All you need is like an Internet Explorer or a Windows File Explorer, and you can transfer this stuff over. And
I have no idea what that is, but that is amazing. That is so cool. So is it helping? Like, first of all, how's the keyboard on that thing? Because you know how.
the keyboard is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
When I bought one of these things, and they're not that easy to find, but there's two different versions. The white one is a less expensive one, and you can usually find them on eBay, now and then.
Super cool.
There was some limited internet back in the day, but with dial-up, that's not a thing. So if you want a distraction-free writing device,
I love that.
you do need something to plug the floppy disk into your actual computer, and
it uses a floppy disk.
Yes, it uses a floppy disk.
oh, memories.
Oh my God. I saw something. Oh, you know what it was? Over spring break, the kids and I watched, weirdly enough, decided to watch Ghostbusters. I don't know why.
Yes.
We just had a wild hair and decided to do it, right? And early in the story, I can't remember who it is. I think it's Eon was talking about how, I just erased that videotape. Like, and I was thinking like, oh my God, how long has it been when you would like erase a videotape so that you could re-record something else, erase your West Wing or whatever you were watching and like how far we've come in a not very long period. Like it feels like a million years ago, but it wasn't. So holy smokes, floppy disk. I have not seen one of those for like. Thank you, Regina, very much for letting me know. Mary says, "Ooh, pretty about your word processor. Love it, love it. Nope, it's not weird at all. If anybody's gonna understand, like lust over old school word processors, it's going to be a group of writers. So
Yeah,
you're safe here, Mary. Don't you worry." All right, you guys, let's go ahead and do our outros really quick before we go. I'm going to start with you, Story Detective, since I started with Michelle last time. Tell us a little about you and your awesome channel.
Okay, well, my channel is The Story Detective, and I take my experience from comic books, telling stories through pictures and words through writing, and combine the different storytelling forms, put it under a Sherlockian microscope, and break down the craft for the viewers. There is a lot on my channel still. I'm going to, start a channel review when I get things back up and running, because looking at the stuff, there was videos on there that got almost no views, and things that I tried that's like, that should have worked in a perfect world. And
it's, you know what though, it's good. This is just like being an author though, right? There are things you think that should work and they just don't. And then sometimes there are things that you think this is never going to work, and they end up being the best part of the book. So
and then they get lost down the line because videos that are old, nobody goes back and watches them because, there's new things to watch.
Right. There are new things, but you've got a lot of gold on your channel as far as the old stuff. So some of that stuff is absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Michelle, tell us a little about you and your channel before we head out today.
All right. I'm Michelle Schusterman. I'm a middle grade and young adult author, and my channel is Writing Workshops, Traditional Publishing, Chat, and Writing Blogs.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you for being here today. And thanks to everybody in the chat for being here. You guys are awesome, and you make this stream super, super fun. Anyway, I'm Lisa Daly, and I'm a formerly traditionally published author turned indie author. I can't decide how I want to describe I still have books that are trad published.
Hybrid.
Right. And at some point, I think maybe I'll go back if I had a really good reason to do that. But for now, I'm kind of enjoying like the whole indie thing. It's been sort of fun. So anyway, thanks so much for being here, you guys. We will see you all next Wednesday. Thank you again for all the love. If you guys have questions, I popped up an email address, or you can just send them to me in the chat or DM me or whatever. I think this was sort of fun, and I would love to do it again sometime.
Yeah, the questions were fun.
I know, right? All right, guys. Have a great week. Happy writing, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.